Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Hello and welcome to SciTech Culture. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve? I think we're having a bit of a whinge about Apple products before we got on, but first world problems and all, but I'm sure they'll get to where they need to be. Talking about swapping machines out because something doesn't work is it's never good, is it?
Well, that hasn't happened since the 90s, and the Apple range is starting to look like the 90s, but I think the problem is there's no Steve Jobs coming back this time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about tech today in the second half of the episode, but we're going to start off with US politics, dragged back into it again with Bloomberg's supposed debate fail, I guess, for lack of a better term. You know, he's been spending hundreds of millions of dollars on TV advertising and boosting his poll numbers that way, but when he got the political sunlight on him this week, seems like it didn't all go according to plan, and he probably should have been a bit better prepared, I would have thought.
Well, yeah, I have to agree. I saw the debate. I didn't think it was that bad, but then I don't think he did that well either. It might have been a blessing in disguise because the other Democrats are going crazy as if it's like world wrestling or something on each other. And he's sort of just bumbled his way like, one of the audience members that unexpectedly find themselves in the ring, as want to happen. But, I guess Elizabeth Warren did try to belt him with one of those wrestling chairs, but it didn't seem to do much damage to him. I mean, it would have been nice if he had some sort of witty comeback, but he just took it.
Should he? But I mean, that's the whole thing in that kind of an arena. Shouldn't he have been better prepared to bat some of that stuff away? I mean, I'm surely he would have known that he would have gotten hit with a couple of those things.
Maybe that, and look, I'm being optimistic for someone who I don't know who. I've jumped off the Bloomberg bandwagon since last week anyway after that performance. But I mean, he could have come back with something witty and then he would have looked like the rest of the Democrats who look like just some sort of circus at the moment. So maybe it was a good way to handle it. Maybe it was a tactic. Maybe he was just underprepared. But, gee, if he was underprepared and he just thinks he's going to buy his way in, another performance like that and he won't be going anywhere. He'll just have the most expensive campaign in history.
Absolutely. The other thing that was interesting about all of that is that it's unwittingly propelled Bernie Sanders higher than expected, and it's largely because the moderates on the stage, including Bloomberg, are all taking pot shots at each other. And I think they ran the numbers that if all the votes that were going to all the moderate Democrats were tallied together, they would beat Bernie. But because he's the only one running, Warren's not really giving him much of a run for whatever reason now, because no one's really competing in Bernie's lane. He's just charging ahead, and it's possible that he could get it.
Well, he could. Look, I don't know enough about US politics or really what's going on inside America to probably comment accurately, but I'm going to take a stab at it anyway. Of all of them, I think Bernie's the only one who seems to offer something different. Whether that's right or wrong for America, I don't know. But we can't go back to the way we were. That was why Trump got in, was because, all this Washington swamp looks after itself. So I guess that takes out Biden straight away and the more moderates. And then, what's Bloomberg going to be? It looks like he's just going to be more of the same. I think at least Sanders, whatever you think of his politics and whether it adds up or not, his policies or his direction, he's offering an alternative. And I think maybe if we look, and we've spoken about this many times, how society through social media is becoming more and more polarised, well, I guess that's now the other camp, and it'll be that camp versus the Trump camp.
For my read of it, just quickly, it's I can appreciate Bernie's consistency. I've been watching YouTube clips of him from the 80s and 90s, and he really has not changed his message or his hairstyle from what I could see since then, and which is impressive. You don't usually get politicians that are that sort of focused on whatever message that they want to deliver. But I kind of I feel like he needs to still be taken to task on some of his stuff, if only just to put all the sunlight on it and expose everything so that he can defend it to the best of his ability.
Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we've seen in Australian politics, minor parties emerge over the last 3 or 4 decades, and they jump on a bandwagon, and they're never going to be a serious contender, so they can stay true. They keep the same line going for 30 years about what they're going to do if they get in. And the great thing is they never run the risk of getting in. Bernie Sanders could be in a position to get in. And to be honest, I don't know how he'd achieve any of the things he's saying if he did get in. So
exactly, yeah,
you're right. He needs to be taken to task.
Thought I'd just finish off this part of the ep with Trump's tweet. Mini Mike Bloomberg's debate performance tonight was perhaps the worst in the history of debates, and there have been some really bad ones. He was stumbling, bumbling, and grossly incompetent. If this doesn't knock him out of the race, nothing will. Not so easy to do what I did. Which, of course, it always comes back to him. I am fascinated with how this is all going to play out and how they play against him in the back half of the year in the lead up to the election. It's going to be fun to watch, I think.
Well, the thing that's really concerning now, if you're probably an anti-Trump person, any anti-Trump person at all, anyone who just doesn't want to vote for Trump, is that the Democrats are doing a really good job now of propelling Trump to the front of this race. And
that was the argument that came out of that debate. Trump's a winner each time they do one of these.
But they had 4 years to calm down, get over the last election and work out how to beat him. And now all they're doing is beating up themselves. And we
can only wait and see what happens.
Exactly.
All right, let's change tack to smartphones. And I read this interesting article on the ABC News site. Can our smartphones get any smarter? Of course they can. They can still keep building, smarter software, AI. AI in the sense that not that it's a thinking machine, so to speak, but software that can intuitively sort of interface and I guess what you want or whatever.
They're not guessing anymore; they're eavesdropping.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it can do that sort of thing. But what was interesting, I think, is that the smartphone form factor is here to stay for the foreseeable future, in the sense that until the quote-unquote next big thing is figured out, which we'll get to a bit later because I've got an interesting view on that in this article, which I kind of think it makes sense, is that we've got the mature platform now. It is what it is. It's effectively replaced the PC as the center of the tech universe for you as an individual, I guess. You get more done on a phone now because you can carry it around everywhere with you, and it can do so many things.
It's even replaced the PC as the price point.
Yeah, yes, that's right. You can get a $400 PC and a $2,000 smartphone. So
that can do hell of a lot. The PC can do a hell of a lot more than your smartphone, but you still go with the smartphone. So.
Yeah, so the interesting thing after considering all of that is that it appears that the smartphone is now becoming the center of your digital life, with persistent connection to the cloud. You're taking all your photos on it. You're actually managing your photos on your phone now as opposed to your PC or Mac or whatever, although you could still do that if you want. And I've found that even in my use cases that's the case, that it's the phone that you're really doing everything through, and you really just go to your computer when you need something more task specific that only can be done on that, which is interesting. But they've actually, like I said in this article, they've actually said that that's actually not necessarily the end of the story, in the sense that might be what it is now, but it'll probably be eclipsed by something else in the future. But the thing that I found interesting is that it may not necessarily be a completely new device that replaces the smartphone. It may just be that all of the ancillary devices become so smart that it doesn't really matter which one you're picking up going forward.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think so. I think, really, do we use our phones as phones? I think from the moment that SMS was invented, people preferred to text over actually talk. And I think the most interesting thing, though, about probably what the phone will become is that we're still beholden to the battery. So they have to be a certain size and certain shape to be able to get a battery that lasts long enough in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's thought of a cube, but I guess, maybe, but they're really into screens, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, it could be other things like, watches or whatever other types of, ancillary devices you could be just picking them up and doing things with as well, because they'll just become that good.
Well, that's right. But even your watches are limited by battery life too, I think. And so, I mean, the question for me is, will they ever go past the screen? I guess not till we have a chip implanted in our head.
Yeah, well, that's something to look forward to.
I mean, Google Glass is a good example. Maybe now you'd get away with Google Glass like you wouldn't have, almost 10 years ago now. So...
Well, that's actually, maybe, I don't know if it's an appropriate analogy, but video calling. So nobody wanted to do video calling, and it never took off, despite the fact that the technology was arguably there for quite some time. But now we've got these smartphones, and now everyone can Skype, FaceTime, or do whatever, and they're completely comfortable doing that now, by comparison.
Do people really video call? I mean, I know we do. But,
it's all right. I've seen enough of it and in enough inappropriate places in public to know that people are more than comfortable to do it. But it's maybe it's just a question of if it's presented in a certain way. And like you said, if there's a true breakthrough in battery technology, so instead of your smartphone only lasting a day, it can last 2 weeks, for instance.
That's right. And I guess the other thing is, as we covered last week, is the flip phone coming back with the foldable screen. I think that is actually something that will really change things, because that has the potential to knock out tablets.
Yeah, exactly. As long as, they get that folding issue working all good. Seems like Samsung's second attempt at it is going down really well, apparently. It's not quite the fail that the Galaxy Fold was last year.
Well, as I said last week, you have to start somewhere. So, I think everyone knows you don't buy version 1.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Steve, might be a good place to wrap that up. So don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube, Vimeo, RSS feeds, channels, etc. Watch us on any of your devices, and we greatly appreciate your visit to our website. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.